Hey guys, what's up? Today I'm going to be releasing my college football Week 3 power rankings. I will be doing this every week, comparing my power rankings to the AP Top 25 poll, contrasting the differences and similarities within the two polls. Without any further delay, let's get into it. Starting off at 25 after being unranked, I have UCF. The Knights came off of an impressive win against a previously undefeated TCU team. The number one rushing team in the country deserves some respect, so I have them here at 25. They're an extremely one-dimensional football team, and that could come back to hurt them against some of the better teams in college football, but their rushing attack is so lethal I have them here at 25. Coming in at 24, I have Indiana. Indiana hasn't exactly faced the stiffest competition. However, every team that has been put in front of them, they have completely dominated. Week 1, they beat FIU 31-7. Week 2, they dominated FCS team Western Illinois 77-3, and this past week destroyed a middling UCLA Bruins team 42-13. Indiana has the 11th ranked offense in the country, but even more impressively, they have the 3rd ranked defense. And if college football has shown us anything, it's that the top defenses win championships. At 23, I have the Memphis Tigers. This team coming out of the American Athletic Conference has everything a smaller program needs to succeed and pull off huge upsets on a week-to-week basis. Memphis has a solid defense through 3 weeks of the season, ranking 12th overall, and a big quarterback with a strong arm in senior Seth Hennigan. Memphis is coming off an impressive win versus a bad Florida State team after dominating Troy 38-17 in their Week 2 matchup. Memphis does not have a very tough schedule, so they will need to remain dominant in the AAC. At 22, I have Iowa State. After an impressive win against their rivals Iowa, Iowa State is coming off of a bye week, so they remain stagnant at 22 for me. From 21 to 19, there is no movement on my rankings. Nebraska stays at 21 after their underwhelming performance against Northern Iowa. After getting out to a 21-point lead at halftime, it felt like Nebraska took their foot off the gas and didn't show that killer instinct that all elite college football teams have. I still think they are an extremely talented football team and will go as far as their talented freshman quarterback Dylan Raiola will take them. Clemson stays at 20 following their bye. At this point, I don't really know what to make of the Clemson Tigers through their first 2 weeks of the season, and I don't think many other people do either. After getting dominated in Week 1 by Georgia, they destroyed Appalachian State 66-20. I don't have any reason to move them after the bye, so they stay at 20. At 19, I have Louisville. They are also coming off a bye, but have looked impressive in their first 2 games, outscoring their opponents 111-14. Louisville has played inferior competition, but we should get a better gauge of who this team really is after their game against Georgia Tech. As you can see from the official AP poll, we differ in some key areas. First of all, at 25, Texas A&M should not be ranked, but we'll get into that near the end of the video, so stay tuned for my diatribe. A&M is at 25. Illinois is at 24 and Northern Illinois is at 23. I have no problem ranking both Illinois and Northern Illinois, and I will get into their cases for being ranked later in the video, but I believe the teams that I have ranked are more deserving at this point than these 3 teams. At 22, they have Nebraska, so I am 1 spot higher than them. They are a little higher on Iowa State than I am at 20, and at 19, we both have Louisville. At 18, I have Michigan staying in this ranking following their 28-18 win against Arkansas State. This Michigan team has done nothing to show me that they deserve to move up, and their offense still has a lot of questions going into Big Ten play. They will have an immediate test in USC and could find themselves dropping out of the rankings altogether with another lopsided loss. At 17, I have Notre Dame falling 2 spots from their ranking of 15 last week. Notre Dame had an impressive performance last week against what many people think is a middle to decent Purdue team, but the Fighting Irish made them look horrible, winning 66-7. Notre Dame falls here not because of anything they did, but because at this point I believe the 2 teams that passed them are better football teams at this point and had more impressive victories this week. At 16, moving up 1 spot from being ranked 17 last week, is LSU. LSU is coming off of an edge-of-your-seat thriller versus South Carolina in a game that the Bayou Bengals almost lost. I'm not going to penalize LSU for almost losing to an unranked team because I think South Carolina is going to be a good team this year in the SEC. Also moving up one spot from 16 to 15 is Kansas State. Kansas State is coming off an impressive win versus the number 20th ranked team. According to the official AP poll, Arizona. I think this game answered a lot of questions about these two teams. It exposed Arizona as a severely flawed team and Kansas State as a true contender in the Big 12. Coming in at number 14, we have Oklahoma. Oklahoma sees no movement here, staying at 12 after their Week 3 win versus Tulane. I believe Tulane is going to be a solid team in the AAC this year, so the win is impressive. However, I could not move OU up because I believe the teams ahead of them have more impressive resumes so far, so Oklahoma stays at 14. Remaining at 13 is Oklahoma State. Tulsa was no match for Oklahoma State as the Cowboys easily brushed past the Golden Hurricane 45-10. Oklahoma State has looked extremely impressive so far through the season and faces a stiff test in Utah heading into conference play. Looking at the official AP poll, we both have the 16, 17, and 18 spots as LSU, Notre Dame, and Michigan respectively. They're a little lower on Oklahoma than I am, ranking them at 15, while they have Oklahoma State one spot lower than I have them, and actually have K-State ranked higher than both Oklahoma State and OU at 13. At 12, I have USC. The Trojans are coming off a bye week and have a huge game this week against the Michigan Wolverines. If they win that game, there is no reason why they wouldn't move up in the rankings next week, maybe even into the top 10. I have Utah staying at 11. You could right now argue that USC and Utah should be swapped, and I wouldn't argue with you on that one. Utah will always have a great defense that will keep the Utes in games, but the real question is the health of Cam Rising. Freshman backup QB Isaac Wilson was solid in his debut, throwing for 3 touchdowns in a rout of their rivals Utah State. But Cam Rising just brings a different element to this team that shows up in the big games. Staying at 10, I have Miami. Again, you could argue that Miami should be ahead of Penn State, and I wouldn't put up too much of a fight over it. I just feel that the 10th place is the perfect spot for Miami. Cam Ward is an absolute dude and will be a big reason why this team succeeds. But I do think we should pump the brakes on Miami and wait for them to play some real competition. Their win against Florida is looking less impressive every week. And while they beat FCS team Florida A&M 59-9 and a bad Ball State team 62-0, we should still wait and see how they perform against better competition. Remaining at 9, I have Penn State. After looking inconsistent at best, they will look to get back on track versus Kent State in game. They should dominate and improve to 3-0. Dropping 2 spots from 6 to 8, we have Missouri. The Tigers missed a lot of opportunities to make the 27-21 win against Boston College a lot more lopsided than it ended up being. And while Missouri didn't dominate the game, they were clearly the superior team against a ranked opponent. Missouri has a tough schedule being in the SEC, but it isn't the gauntlet that many other SEC teams face, seeing only 3 other ranked future opponents. I have the Oregon Ducks remaining at 7 after their dominant 49-14 victory over their in-state rivals. After 2 close games against 2 inferior opponents, a convincing win like this was something that was desperately needed. Going back to the AP poll, they have USC and Utah switch from my rankings, and I have no problem with this. Penn State moved down 2 spots to 10. They have Oregon at 9, which I think is a bit low. Dillon Gabriel is one of the best signal callers in the country, and all that NIL money that was spent showed up against Oregon State this past week. Miami at 8 is a bit high for me considering the opponents they. Looking at our top 6, Tennessee moves up 2 spots from their ranking of 8 last week. Tennessee looks like one of the best teams in the country, and I am extremely high on this team. They have looked dominant against their first 3 opponents, outscoring them by a combined 191-13, including an NC State team that was ranked at the time they played. They have one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in college football in freshman Nico Iamaleava and ranked 2nd in the country in total defense. They face OU next week in what should be a fantastic matchup. At 5, I have Ole Miss holding serve. If you think Tennessee has looked dominant, you can argue the same thing about Ole Miss, only allowing 9 points on the year through 3 games and blowing out Wake Forest 40-6. And while their defense isn't as good as Tennessee, Jackson Dart and this Rebels offense can go blow for blow with any team in the nation. Staying at 4, I have Alabama. Alabama have looked like the dominant Crimson Tide of old in their first 3 games of the season. While the game against USF was closer than the box score, Alabama was able to pull away at the end. While nothing Alabama does is spectacular, ranking 20th in total defense and 26th in total offense, they are an extremely well-rounded and competitive team. This is shown by their 28.2 FPI score that ranks 2nd in the country. Falling a spot down from 2 at 3, I have Ohio State. Ohio State has looked dominant against the teams they have played so far, but the problem is they haven't really played any meaningful competition. They have utterly decimated Akron and Western Michigan, scoring 50-plus points in both contests while only allowing 6 points combined, but we will have to wait and see just how dominant this team really is when they enter Big Ten Conference play. Moving out of the top spot in the power rankings down to 2, I have Georgia. The Bulldogs narrowly escaped Lexington with a 13-12 win. Georgia falls because of the close nature of their game versus a middling, at best, Kentucky team. This, in combination with the results of Texas, caused them to fall out of the top spot. I still think Georgia is a real threat to raise another college football national championship and a real force in college football. Moving up 2 spots to the number 1 team in my power rankings is Texas. The Longhorns followed up an impressive win in the Big House with an absolute drumming of UTSA last week. And while Texas's defensive game is improving through 3 games, they will certainly be tested in the SEC. The health of quarterback Quinn Ewers is a real question, but super prospect Arch Manning looked phenomenal in relief. With Ewers likely week to week dealing with his injury, could the top spot be in question? Only time will tell. Looking at the official AP top 6, we have Tennessee at 6, Ole Miss at 5, Alabama at 4, Ohio State at 3, Georgia moving down 1 spot to 2, and Texas at 1. So the AP poll, and I agree on the top 6. Keep in mind I do my rankings before looking at the AP poll, so the fact that we agree on every spot in the top 6 is pretty remarkable and probably won't happen again. So in the last few minutes of this video, I want to talk about some teams you could make realistic cases for them being in my top 25 and some teams that you can't make cases for. In the teams that you could make realistic cases that they should be in my top 25 rankings, I have California, Illinois, Washington State, and Northern Illinois. Talking about Cal, their best win is the 21-17 win at Auburn. They have an FPI, or Football Power Index, which basically tells you how well you played relative to the level of competition you were playing. They have an FPI of 5.1, which ranks 40th in the country. Cal is 3-0 this season, and they face a terrible Florida State team this week. For me, I think it's personally too early to rank them. We don't know how good Auburn is yet, and I think Cal is improving. If they can beat Miami, or at least play them tough, and excel in ACC play, they could find themselves in my power rankings. The next team I have is Illinois. The problem I have with having Illinois ranked is that their best win is versus Kansas, and Kansas is a bad 1-2 football team right now. Kansas just lost to UNLV and looked poor. Illinois is obviously ranked in the official top 25 AP poll, and I think you could realistically rank them, but for me, Kansas isn't really a quality win. Another team that I think you could make a case for them being ranked is Washington State. They just beat their rivals Washington in a huge game, and has looked good on the season at 3-0. The ESPN FPI likes them, ranking them at 34th in the country, and if they can remain competitive in the Pac-2, they could find themselves ranked. The last team you could make a case for, in my opinion, is Northern Illinois. They beat Notre Dame in that huge upset. Give Northern Illinois credit, but I think that contest said more about how bad Notre Dame played than anything about Northern Illinois. And you can see the FPI doesn't really like them, as they have a negative FPI and rank 72nd. If they win the MAC, you could maybe see them getting into the college football playoff as the mid-major team. Moving on to the teams that I believe have no case for being ranked right now. At first, I have Texas A&M. A&M's best win comes versus a Florida team that looks really bad right now and just got blown out by Miami. Keep in mind the Aggies won that game at home by only 13 points. The Aggies lost to Notre Dame, who lost to Northern Illinois. Texas A&M, at this point, has no business being ranked. The Aggies do have a tough schedule, so they will have a chance to beat some quality opponents to jump back in the mix for me. But right now, you cannot justify ranking them over teams like Indiana, UCF, or Cal. Boise State is next. Listen to me, I like Boise State. I think they're going to be a good team this year and should compete for the Mountain West. The analytics also like them ranking the Broncos right outside the top 25. But you cannot rank a 1-1 Boise State team whose best win is a close game against an FCS school. Boise State did play Oregon close, which impressed many people, including me, but right now I couldn't possibly rank them. Liberty is getting some top 25 votes, and to be honest, I really don't know why. Liberty hasn't played anyone, and their toughest game is against an App State team who just got destroyed by Clemson. I don't want to see Liberty anywhere near the top 25 until they go 12-0. The last team I have on the list is UNLV. I know, UNLV's best win comes versus Kansas. Kansas right now is 1-2. They're not a good football team right now. I think UNLV has the chance to be a good football team this year, but I need to see more success before I can have them ranked. A win versus Kansas doesn't help you much right now. And that wraps up my Week 3 college football power rankings. Let me know who you guys thought I got right. I'm sure you let me know who I got wrong and how I screwed your team out of the rankings. Let me know what you thought about the video, and I will see you guys next time.
Let's run away.